You on with week 2 of the Midwest Culturally Inclusive Conference. Today's session is entitled University Bias Incident Team, Trends and Resources. We do have some community standards during this conference. Kaden will share the full statement in the chat. However, I'm going to share a few of them aloud. Please obtain consent before taking any photos, screenshots, or copying any text that you may see or is presented here today. If you're here for personal interest, professional development, a school or class assignment, it's perfectly fine to take notes or write a report. We just don't want any photos or content used without folks' consent. Please mute your microphone when you are not speaking. When you are speaking, please turn your camera on and identify yourself. Speak clearly and slowly so that our live closed captioning service is as accurate as possible. We are using live closed captioning in all of our MCIC sessions. If you do not already see it on your screen, you're going to want to look at your Zoom taskbar and click the CC button. This may be under the More tab or button as well, and click View Live Transcript, and you should start seeing the live closed captions come up on your screen. Please message us in the Zoom chat if you're having any difficulties. Most of the sessions for the Midwest Culturally Inclusive Conference are being recorded. The QR code that you see on your screen directly links to our Campus Climate YouTube page where you can find most of our recordings. You can take a second now to utilize your smartphone and bring that up just so you have a reference of where it's at. We are recording most of these sessions to make them as accessible as possible to those who cannot attend live. And the recording links will be posted in Whova, either on the desktop and in the app version, and on our Campus Climate YouTube page. We currently have 2 recordings from last week posted, and we are working on finalizing and processing additional recordings that have happened since. If you have any questions throughout today's session, please feel free to message publicly or privately your hosts. So we have quite a few hosts and co-hosts here today. If you have questions or concerns at any point, please reach out to us. We are also monitoring our Campus Climate email accounts throughout today's session and throughout the entire conference if you'd like to contact us there. And finally, I would like to introduce today's session, University Bias Incident Teams, Trends and Resources, presented by Laura Franklin and Linda Mulroy-Bowden. The University Bias Incident Team, or UBIT, is a group of campus representatives committed to supporting students, faculty, staff, and the community who have been affected by hate and bias. UBIT reviews any reported incidents of bias, gathers information, and recommends a plan of action to ensure that those affected by the incident receive support, and that cases are referred to appropriate campus response areas for follow-up. The presentation is intended to provide key information about the purpose and function of UBIT, as well as share bias incident trends from our campus community and beyond. Angela Miller, Laura Franklin, and Linda Mulroy-Bowden direct and lead the UBIT team. I am now going to stop sharing briefly and bring up our other PowerPoint for today and turn things over to Laura and Linda.
Maybe Linda and I will quickly introduce ourselves. So I see a lot of familiar faces, but Linda and I co-convene the UBIT team, and I am Laura Franklin, and I am an Executive Director in Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
Good morning, everyone. My title is, actually good afternoon. My title is, my name is Linda Mulroy-Bowden, and my title is Executive Director of Student Life and Development, and really happy to see so many of you here this morning. As you can see, our objectives are listed here. We're hoping to increase awareness of our purpose and function, of our team, understand the current trends of hate and bias at UW-Platteville, and discuss your reporting options and methods of follow-up, and identify gaps in the audience understanding of UBIT today.
And we're going to start with the poll. Certainly, we have our objectives and things we hope to accomplish, but we certainly want to know what it is that you would like us to focus our attention on today and what you're most hoping to learn during this session. So Emily is going to help us to take a little poll here.
If you are unable to utilize the polling function, if you would feel comfortable putting your response in the chat of things that you would like to focus on. We know that polling doesn't work on Chromebooks and maybe some other devices. So just as an alternative option, this question on your screen is also the same answer or question in the poll. So maybe we'll give folks another 10, 15 seconds. Another 5 seconds, and then we'll go ahead and end the poll. So here are the results.
I
am
not surprised by that. Right, that's what I was going to say. So we will be sure to convey the information, and then we'll kind of focus some of our time and energy on what are the trends, and certainly happy to take questions and have dialogue around that as well.
And even though nobody wants to know who's on our team, we're going to tell you that too. Okay. So a little bit of an overview of UBIT. Again, it stands for University Bias Incident Team. And I'm going to just give you just a little historical perspective, since I was on the original team when this came about. And back in the day, we didn't really have a way to respond to a bias incident campus-wide. And we found that rather than different areas trying to navigate bias incidents on their own, we wanted a way for the university to be able to evaluate and take a look at situations from a collective lens. So we convened groups of people who had a reason to be invested in the different incidences from a response perspective. So the different areas are there for a specific reason. So for example, I represent residence life. So we have a reason to have residence life on there because that is a collective group of students in a community living environment. We have people representing the Dean of Students area, where that's a response area for policy, etc. We have university police. We have Laura is there representing our areas related to underrepresented students. We have a variety of different areas who are there representing. Everybody is there for a specific reason. And the reason, again, that we were all pulled together was so that we had a collective uniform response to bias that matched with the mission of our campus. Before, it was sort of scattered. Some places were responding in one way, other places were responding in another way, some places weren't responding at all. So this all started probably, we were responding in a variety of ways before this particular incident, but about when Chancellor Shields first came here, we had some incidents happening specifically in several of the residence halls that escalated to a point where Chancellor Shields came out into the residence halls and then spoke with the students and specifically requested a very unified response. And that's where we came up with the particular groups of people who are now on UBIT. Before that, we did have a response team, but it wasn't what it is now related to the membership. So what did I miss, Laura? What can I add about that? And that resulted in the form, the online form, et cetera, and our publicity and getting the word out.
I think the other piece of that is that it has allowed us to not only have that uniform response, but to collect and understand trends and patterns. Yes. That really helps us to understand what's happening on campus and to inform some of the work we do in response and some of
yes.
the programming that we do.
Thank you. And also, it helps us also to provide some of that data, like in this fashion, to you, so that you also know what is going on. We attend conferences that are sponsored across the state. We also gathered our information from a variety, the way that we have set ourselves up. We did that very deliberately through learning about other places who have teams like this. So we've actually been in place longer than a lot of campuses have been. So we've worked hard to create a team that is responsive and best practices, et cetera. So that's a little bit about the history of us. Again, the other thing that I would say about us is that we don't necessarily provide the conduct to, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about this later. We don't provide the response, we refer the response. So I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that later, but it talks about that in this paragraph. We refer to the appropriate campus response areas for follow-up. So even though none of you want to hear this, this is our membership. And you'll see the various areas that I talked about. We do have representation. Our overarching is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then you can look down and see the various areas that have a purpose and a reason for being on UBIT. Variety of representations from diversity, equity, inclusion, academic affairs is represented, human resources, dean of students, public relations, et cetera.
This slide is talking about how to file a report. And so anyone can submit a bias report. So it could be faculty, staff, or students, or it could be someone from the community, a visitor to campus. Sometimes when it's a social media report, for example, it's someone that has seen something on some university related social media that is not necessarily a member of the community. You can also submit the report anonymously. That isn't necessarily our preference because we do want to be able to follow up with folks, but certainly if someone is more comfortable submitting anonymously, that is definitely an option. You can also file a report on behalf of someone else. And so there's an opportunity to just make that clear when you're filing. And so sometimes that's helpful to someone else if you file on their behalf. You should file a report even if you're not sure if it was an incident of hate or bias. And so we appreciate and take all reports and then take an individual and comprehensive look at each and every report. So if you're not sure, you're welcome to reach out to a member of the group and talk that through before submitting a report, but you're also we take all reports and happy to do so. We do serve all three campuses. So we serve this campus as well as the branch campus. The branch campuses are included under that same umbrella and served by that same UBIT committee.
The QR code on the screen does link directly to the reporting form as well.
And again, we don't want people to worry about, should I submit, should I not submit? Go ahead and submit, and we will determine if in fact it will go through for further action. So once a report is submitted, every member of the team receives an electronic copy. And then we determine if immediate action response is required. So if immediate action response is required, that may be something where there's an immediate threat to the university, or there's something that someone is engaging in dangerous activity, et cetera, then we would call an emergency meeting, or we would refer that directly to the police, or there might be something that would that would necessitate immediate response. Otherwise, we meet weekly at 3 p.m. To discuss whatever reports we have, whether it's an ongoing report that somebody was providing action on the week before and following up on, we would get a report of the action, or we would talk about any new report. So reports are reviewed and determined to be responded by one or more of the following areas. And the areas are listed there. For example, if we were to talk about university police, they may be following up with something that was deemed to be behavior that necessitated police response. Chief Hallman serves on our team. He would indicate what he could tell us about a report. Obviously, if it's an open case, he's limited in what he can report back to us, but he would tell us what he was able to tell us. Same with human resources. They would be limited on what they could tell us, but they would report back to what they could, and so on down the line. The majority of the cases fall under UBIT response. Responses may include providing support to the person who reported it, leading community standards conversations. For example, I'll use the residence halls as an example. If something happened on a wing where there was biased language used, or biased language written on a whiteboard, et cetera, we would call a wing meeting and discuss the impact of the community of such behavior, et cetera. And that would be led by residence life staff. And that was something that we would then determine, we would then have a conversation. We would then talk with the people, with our residents about that, the impact of community, et cetera. Consulting on university communications. Is this something that we would need to send out to the entire campus community? Do we need to talk about the trends and patterns that we're seeing? And you have likely seen some of those communications that have come out from Chancellor Shields and more. There's other things that we might do. We have we have put posters up that have talked about civility in posting, and these posters are for everybody. Please remember that when you are posting things, don't damage other posters, etc. We have done things like we had a homecoming entry in the parade. We have done a variety of things that have also been not about any specific one case, but have been a proactive response in general. But we have done a variety of ways that we would respond. A lot of the things will fall under any one of those areas that are listed above. If it's student conduct and the student doesn't live in the residence halls, that generally falls under the Dean of Students. If it's a residence life conduct, residence life has their set protocols that they follow, etc. So while it's not an overarching UBIT conduct, it typically falls within a bucket of those other areas. Any questions about that I can answer, or that we can answer? Happy to answer what we can. If you have a question, just unmute and we're happy to answer that. Or anybody else. I saw that Alicia was on for Dean of Students. I don't know if other UBIT people are on there, want to jump in, they certainly may as well.
We'll have a whiteboard coming up too if people want to engage anonymously, if that feels more comfortable.
Sure. Thank you, Emily.
Mm-hmm. So this is the whiteboard that, what questions you have about the UBIT process. In order, you can write directly on my screen. And I have disabled the names of folks that are writing, so it is anonymous. In order to do that, you'll want to look in your Zoom taskbar and click the annotate button, and then you will get a text bar that comes up, and you'll want to click T for text to write directly on my screen. If you don't want to do that, you can also private message or public message any questions, or feel free to raise your hand and unmute yourself if you have questions at this time.
While we're waiting, I'll talk a little bit more about that community standards conversation, because I think that's something people might be curious about. And so all folks are, we invite folks to come and have a community standards conversation with us. And really it's to help someone understand the impact of their actions. And so it really is an educational meeting. We want that impact to come to be understood. We might want to understand why. A couple years ago, you've probably seen, and we're still engaging in a campaign, Hate is Not a Value. And so it's really letting folks know that what they have done is counter to our values as an institution. And so it's just really trying to help someone understand the impact of their actions and converse about that, and that let them take a pretty strong stand in letting them know that their actions aren't in aligned with our campus values. So one of the questions, do UBIT members have quote unquote terms to cycle new perspectives through the team to prevent burnout? I think that's a good question, but the thing about the membership is that it is not based on individuals like Laura Franklin. It's based on positionality. And so those positions are there for very specific reasons. Those folks often have some follow-up that they need to do within their own areas, and things are often referred out to those areas. People do cycle through when someone else comes into that particular position.
Does a UBIT group ever extend beyond the campus borders into the community? We have had some crossover into some situations that have happened into the community, where a campus community member has had something happen into the community, where we have met with community members or community organizations, et cetera, about a variety of things. So what I would say is there is crossover. Certainly we recognize that we are all, if we live in Platteville, there certainly is that double affiliation, right? So yes, we have extended our response, I would say our response into the community. We don't deal with situations that happen in the community to non-university people. So I guess that's the way I would respond to that. If someone is a university person and something happens in the community, we have had things like that reported. Have you thought about having a counselor on the UBIT team? I would say that certainly we can consider that kind of membership.
And then how
Angela Miller is very engaged in who's on the team. It's not Laura or I who make those decisions. So
how do students find out about UBIT? I think it's through some of those traditional processes like new student orientation, first year experience classes. Residence Life does a really great job. We do poster a lot around campus. We do send out emails to students and community campus members to try to make sure that everyone is aware. We did the homecoming parade. So any opportunity that we have to try to get that word out, certainly, but we're always open to suggestions and ideas. We absolutely want everyone to know about the UBIT process.
Yeah.
I think some examples of that community interaction, if a student, I know there's been several examples where a student is doing business with a local business and they've had a negative experience, and then we've went and talked to those businesses about that. And in the last year or so, we've been working with the city as well as the school system in terms of them establishing their own UBIT
Yes.
kinds of entities.
Are there any further questions in the chat that anyone has received?
Good questions. Thank you.
Please feel free to continue putting them in the chat as we move forward. Oh, here's another one.
What are ways that you manage hearing about these incidences on campus? Mostly we hear about them through the UBIT reports that we get. Sometimes that UBIT report will then generate somebody else talking about it or saying, well, I also heard that, heard about this, and that triggers something else that wasn't necessarily reported through an official report. We'll then hear about something else, but most of the times we'll hear about it through the official report. Or we'll hear somebody will say that they overheard somebody talking about something, and then, you know, whether it's in a classroom, or it seems like once something is reported, that will then get people talking, and then it will trigger something else.
All right. Well, we can continue to take questions and, oh, okay, never mind, one more.
How do you all handle duplicate reports if and when they happen? Do the duplicates count toward the overall count? I'm going to let Emily respond to the data part of that, but we do often receive duplicates, and honestly, I think that's good news. That means that folks that are experiencing the same thing are reporting the same thing. I mean, we do, while the response might be similar, we do outreach to each person who submits a report and asks for us to outreach to them. That's one of the questions, is do you want to be contacted? So we do want to be sure to offer support to each person that receives, that submits a report. And then the response might be similar for those multiple reports. And Emily, can you talk about counting that towards the total?
Yes, so it's very rare that we receive the exact same report by the exact same reporter. So if it is about the same incident, but it's from a different perspective or a different person, we honor that that is a separate report in and of itself, and it does count to the overall count of reports. Very rarely, I think from my recollection, it's only happened once or twice that it's the same reporter reporting the same incident more than once. And at that time, we would determine this is the exact same thing and kind of condense it into one. I hope that was helpful.
I appreciate this question. How do you cope with hearing repeated content that is so distressing?
Well,
I think that in the last year, this has really been front and center for us.
yes.
We did have a retreat. So, you know, we get together weekly and provide space during that time. We did have a retreat at the between semesters this year. We've been talking about bringing in some resources for that.
I think particularly when, you know, when we talk about trends and patterns, I think, you know, people say things like, this is just my, I think people say things like, well, I can't believe that happens at Platteville. And I respond, why wouldn't it happen here? You know, we're a microcosm of the nation. And when I look at what's happening at the national level, I think that there's distressing things happening all the time at the national level. So for me, I would say that I try and do my part in being a part of the solution. So that helps. But yeah, it's hard, you know, and I think that as a team, we try and support each other and just, you know, process and talk it through, but it's hard. You know, I guess that's the best way to, how do we cope with hearing repeated content? A lot of the content is different. So, I mean, we're dealing with different kinds of things, but it's not easy. And my problem for me is just how sometimes I think, how can people treat each other that way? But then we continue to see it. So, you know, we know it's happening. And I honestly, I have more of an issue with people who think that it's not happening. You know, people who are unwilling to see that, you know, this isn't an issue.
So this one is asking, where do reports go once they are submitted? I'm not sure if that's a technical question or not. In the report, it's managed through a database system, but then it's pushed out to each member of the group electronically. So we're all receiving a copy of that, and we're keeping a little bit of and then we're collecting data on those reports as well.
It's a Qualtrics form. So it's housed in Qualtrics, and we then are able to query the reports, et cetera, that we then will give us the data that we're going to show you.
Well, we do have another space for questions towards the end of the presentation. I think I'm going to move us forward to the trends section, and then we'll kind of, circle back to additional questions, but please feel free to engage in the chat as we move forward as well.
Okay, so this is just really talking about incidents by volume. So you'll see we're starting with 2016, 17, and then bringing us to fall. So one of the things that I would point out is that last bar is really only fall, and all of the other bars are full academic years. So the other bars are representing 2 semesters, and the last gray blue bar is only 1 semester. So that should tell you something right there. You'll see, might think, oh my gosh, that green bar, 2021, that's kind of low. That was COVID year, and 1920 was a COVID year, you know, kind of high. So, but that was what we were off 1 semester or away 1 semester there. But, you know, so that should tell you, yes, 48 already. So we have, we started off actually before we even officially opened the residence halls this year with early arrivals. And we have not gone, I don't think, we may cancel a meeting if we don't have cases to talk about, et cetera. I don't believe, Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, that we've canceled yet this semester.
Once, if at all. So.
I don't think so. So we've been, unfortunately, pretty steady. Happy to answer any questions about what you see there by trends.
Well, I want to add, Emily gave me a little update the other day that, so that is, it's really not just 48 as of today, because that was the fall term. And of course, we're in the spring.
Yep, you're
Emily,
right.
did you tell me we were at 62?
We're at 66 cases right now.
Okay, so we all
Yeah,
know.
so we're equal to where we were, and we still have half a semester left. where we were for the full year at our highest, right? Is that what you're saying, Emily?
Yep.
2016 is the first year that we started to keep great records. So that is, we don't have the greatest records prior to that year, so. Okay, these are some more trends that go back to 2016 to the present, and these pretty much are holding true over time. So the top targeted identities, race, ethnicity remains the number one, then sexual orientation, gender identity, and national origin. And then the types or forms of incidents, written is at the top there, then verbal, social media, that's just really been increasing in the last few years. And then vandalism is something that's been increasing somewhat as well.
So our fall summary is we did have 3 reported incidents involved with the commitment or incitement of physical violence. Our top target identity was race and ethnicity. Our top 3 targeted identities were race, ethnicity, gender, and sexual orientation. That's pretty consistent over the last 3 years. We already talked about, we had 48 reported incidents since July 1, a 177% increase from fall 2019. 71% of the incidents took place on university grounds. 71% of the incidents were verbal. 77% of the incidents targeted gender, sexual orientation, and or transgender identity.
And then this is the reports from the fall by campus location. And so as we talked about before, we do serve all 3 campuses. The main campus in this fall was where all the reports were from. We do have reports from the branch campuses. Really, it's just not quite as often. And so in the fall, we do not have any from those other locations.
No. And I mean, we're not fooling ourselves. We know that 48 reports does not at all equal what's happening on our campus, nor 0 reports on these other 2 campuses certainly isn't representative of what's happening on their campuses either. It's just what's being reported or not reported.
Thank you.
Okay, here's the specific locations. 17 university building, 9 in the residence halls, university grounds, off campus, and other location. Other location equals things like, you know, computers, social media, etc. I really think it's, let me just go back. I really think it's important to point out that this trend has really shifted. When we started, nearly all of these incidents, the university buildings, a lot of those are classrooms. And I just think it's important for us to point that out. When we started tracking, or when we started this team, most of these situations were happening in the residence hall. Just to be point blank honest with you. Now we are getting reports from classrooms, and that's what that university building number is really reflecting.
Linda, can I jump in quick with some added context too?
Mm-hmm.
So it's, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it is part of protocol for RAs to automatically report through UBIT when an incident is brought to their attention.
They
right?
must, yes, it's required.
Yeah, so I think that's good context here too, because we're only reflecting 9, and that is part of protocol. So all these other reports are coming in by people reaching out like through the UBIT process.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, resident assistants, part of their protocol is that they have to bring forward any kind of a bias incident. So, thanks, Emily.
And then these are the fall reports by targeted identities. We've talked about that a few times. You can see though race, ethnicity, and gender, followed by sexual orientation, are really making up a large majority of the cases.
And then here's the form of incident, verbal. And that gets at some of the things that where I talked about things in the classroom, et cetera. And then you can see all the other different kinds of types of incident.
And that's by month. And so
October, big month.
something about October.
So I think this is a really good question. You know, how do you feel UBIT can better inform the campus about our team and these trends? You know, we do presentations. We've done, you know, ways, you know, we do Chancellor Shields sends letters, et cetera. And we do come out and have tried to inform people. We're looking for ideas and ways that we can let you know more about UBIT. People know how to find us, clearly. We're pretty busy, but we would really be interested in some of your ideas if you would like to share those with us, and that would be great. So this is
the
a
whiteboard.
Yeah.
You're welcome to unmute and
Yeah,
verbalize as well, but
yeah, you can just tell us, or yeah.
If you have any questions about the data as well, this would be a good time to unmute yourself, put on the whiteboard in the chat as well. Really anything that we shared today, or, you know, suggestions for the future.
no, I don't know that October increase. I don't know. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? Wasn't a big election year. I'm not sure why October.
Yeah, I don't know.
Emily, do you know if we've noticed that in the past?
It's just not quite as a large spike, but I would say that's, from what I can tell, how it goes is it's kind of a slope each semester, and typically spring is less active than the fall. We're sitting pretty consistent with the fall right now. We'll see.
Years ago, there was quite a bit of bias in Halloween costumes and things happening around Halloween, but that was not the case this past year that I recall.
Yeah, we didn't have that this past year. But you're right, Halloween has been a time in previous years where we have had a number of biases. October, maybe the start of the semester. Let's see, Sarah's got something in the chat.
I probably didn't type it well, but just thinking, you know, beginning of the semester when everyone comes back to campus, we communicate through UBIT on how to file reports, etc. So maybe it's just more top of mind, but who knows?
Also, I think, you know, people are settled in more, and that might just be we're starting. Yep. Partnering with athletic teams to have a night where they highlight, educate about a particular type of bias. That's a good idea. Thank you.
Linda and Laura, I think from counseling services, we would say that the month of October is typically an increase for us as well. We notice more stress, more distress with students, whether it be personal or whether it be academic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deirdre. Other ideas about how we can better inform campus?
And please, if great ideas come to you after this, please don't hesitate to.
Yes.
Really, any member of the committee would be happy to have some reach out and engagement from others about ideas and suggestions.
Right.
Laura and Linda, this is Deirdre again. Is there a Campus Climate certainly does a newsletter. So that's an opportunity too, that comes out, I think, on a monthly basis. So that could be an opportunity to share trends or to just update. I do appreciate too, I think I guess I don't want to have to see more coming from the chancellor in terms of, this is happening and we want people to be aware. We don't want this to happen, kind of that nature of an email, but even just coming out from our provost or from our chancellor in terms of what we are noticing on campus and what the campus culture is telling us at any given time. I think that's really helpful. It's a good way to get information out because many people who might not attend different meetings or be part of different groups don't get some of this information.
Yeah, and I do see the, I like the newsletter idea too, submit info for the HR newsletter. Yep, that's a great idea too, to use Sarah, did you post that one? To use an existing format, because I know I read the HR newsletter and we could put it in there, we could forward it to something that's already existing. I think that's a great idea. And I hear what you're saying, Deirdre, too, to do, we don't want to send it through the chancellor every time, because I also think there are people who then start to ignore that, and thanks, Sarah. That's a great idea to include it in there. And we don't want people to become, desensitized to seeing that. So I do like the idea of the routine updates and report outs. I think people are interested in hearing more about it.
Mhm.
Sending myself a reminder. Intervention strategies. Oh, that's a great idea. How to put yourself in the middle of a situation when you see bias or hear bias. There have been some things in the Campus Climate newsletter. I don't know, help me out, Laura, if we've had any specific data about UBIT in the Campus Climate.
I don't know that we have, Emily and Kaden. And we've talked back and forth about creating lacrosse has a ticker, if you will. We're on their website, and so where they do keep track live kind of bias incidents, and we've talked about that off and on, and it just some real pros and cons and mixed thoughts on that. So we'll probably continue to discuss that and see whether or not that's something we want to do.
There has been in the newsletter, when semester reports or annual reports are completed, I usually feature that in there. And you can find those archived on the Campus Climate SharePoint site, but I appreciate that is one avenue and where they sort of live, but it could feel like it's a little buried, hard to get to, etc. Just as an FYI.
Thank you. Does UBIT ever? Okay.
You like to move forward or wait for?
I think we can.
Okay. Oh.
Narrative examples from the data. We've been asked about that a couple of times. We want to be very careful about how we share that narrative data because we have such small groups of people who that could apply to. So we try and be very careful about what we share and how we share it. I have done that in some presentations, where I've tried to be vague enough where I can give an example. But if I say this person who identifies as, in insert whatever, you know, we want to be careful and respectful of that. But thanks, Wayne. But I just really, you know, I think we can do some story kinds of things and talk more about specifics. We just want to be very respectful to the people who are experiencing the bias, that we aren't sharing their story so people can figure out who they are, if they don't want that to be shared. Chancellor Schultz has been very open about the kinds of things he's experienced. Okay.
Thank you all again for the great comments and questions. I'll move us forward here to the last few slides.
This is just really a call and an ask to have all members of the community engaged. So we have the campaign, the Hate is Not a Value campaign. We do have some swag for that campaign. So if anyone is interested in that, just reach out and we'll get some of that to you. Anything you can do to be helpful in informing others about the reporting form and the team, if you can report on behalf of someone if they're not comfortable reporting themselves. You know, continue to be an advocate for change. This is one avenue that we do have available to us, and model inclusivity in spaces that you occupy. Hayden is letting us know we have lots of stickers in Warner 116. So
The tech tattoos.
tech tattoos that you could put on your phone or your laptop, and so yeah.
So you may certainly contact Laura or myself. There are emails, and then this report was created by the Department of Campus Climate, aka Emily. So we certainly appreciate all of her great support in helping us pull together the data that we get. Certainly contact us with questions, with ideas. We would appreciate any that you have for how we get the word out, or if you have a specific question about anything, we're happy to do our best to answer that. And of course, we appreciate you coming this afternoon and learning more about our work and ways that we're trying to have our campus be more inclusive. So I guess that's what we have, unless you have, I think we maybe have 1 or 2 more minutes for any quick questions. Somebody has their hand up.
Oh, please feel free to unmute
Yeah,
yourself.
unmute and ask if you.
A few minutes here, so in the chat or unmute yourself, whatever you feel comfortable with.
We do operate year round, so whether it's breaks or the summer or what have you, the forum is always live and we're engaged year round.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we really appreciate you being here.
Yes, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. We have another session tonight starting at 6 p.m. So we hope you can join us then. Have a great afternoon.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.